Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome, 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 welcome. It is Monday night, and of course, that means that you get the three of us. And
Ta-da!
well, I was gonna say, of course that means, but I guess it doesn't because it seems like half the time, one of us or the other, or like all of us, have to be gone. But we're
Sometimes
here tonight,
we
and that's
are.
what's important.
We are. Yeah. Some nights have been just that way. Yeah. So during the show with Matt, I heard a snap in the background. A mouse.
Oh,
I have a mouse trap over by the one garage door because there's a spot where they'll come in, and I heard a snap, and it's like, is that what I think it is? So I had to go check, and sure enough, that's what
there you
happens
go.
when you have nice weather and you're out in a rural area. You get mice. But now that's fixed. That's fixed. So
You
yeah,
set it for the next one?
yes, I did actually. I reset and get it back down there. So yeah, if I hear a snap, I'll just during this show I'll just get up and run. It'll be like, ooh, I got another one. Okay. So tonight, guys, I wanted to dig into the different. Talking specifically about wedding entertainment, and there's different levels, there's different skill abilities, there's different part as you progress through your career, how you perform in the early days when you're younger, when you're learning, and then how that evolves with the different ways. And really kind of wanted to kind of talk about, maybe what's more acceptable type of wedding entertainment from this type of this level of entertainer, or this type of entertainer, or this type of entertainer, where so people can see that there's a whole spectrum basically of wedding entertainers. And some people are in one area, some people kind of are in a couple of areas, some people are wherever. So that's really what I kind of wanted to get into specifically, and kind of starting out, how our wedding entertainment when we first started, what we did, and then we'll kind of kind of compare and contrast as we went through our careers a little bit. So if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. And then Cubbie will get into his whole, OnlyFans discussion later, of his
Take it off.
yeah, because for many of you, if you follow Cubbie's Facebook page, he decided to step away from his trivia, one of his trivia shows last week. So he's still got to eat. So
Yeah. So please help.
I'll put the URL in.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start off when you first started DJing. And Dan, I think coming from a radio world, when you were first DJing specifically weddings, how was your show? What was your engagement level? What was your music playback style? Kind of, if you could kind of describe those early shows.
Trying to remember back that far. When I first got started with weddings, I mean, very similar to what I think was a custom at the time. Was I was fading songs back and forth. I wasn't trying to mix. I don't think I even knew how to mix or where to begin to learn at that point. So it was very much just play, and the only interaction type of element that I would do was those special moments. So I didn't really talk a whole lot on the mic. There was no I wasn't doing the radio DJ of like introing the songs or anything like that, going into, especially some of the dance portion. But I wasn't really doing much of anything. I think that's partly where even maybe some of my piece comes from of like, once we get into open dancing, the mic gets used some, but it's never been something that I've been forefront with from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Cubbie, where's the microphone? You're today that personality coming across the microphone, and that's one of the reasons the trivia people loved you so much, is because it comes through. Was that part of your style right from the beginning?
Oh my God, no. Wow. I would have to say no. We all have to start somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and we generally work for a company, and we kind of pick up their habits, and then when you start going to trade shows and things, and you start learning mic habits, and you start learning and growing. And this is way before the internet, so I couldn't go watch a YouTube video of Mike Walter or one of the influencers. Influencers were nobody way back then. So you really did have to go out to to trade shows. That's how long ago it was that I
Mm-hmm.
DJ'd. It was a small club at Bedrock. Um, we had a bird with records, and we'd
Yeah,
come
it
to
was great. And then
Flintstones.
if
Yeah,
the bird didn't like your music, it would, then start skipping. And it was like, come on,
yeah.
stop it.
But no, when we were on CD. Some of the interactive stuff was really corny, man. It was like when you'd play the YMCA, you'd go grab those hats. We had the Indian headdress and the cowboy hat and the Bob the Builder. Dad's laughing, but we had that corny stuff, right? Then you had to run out and collect it after the song so you could use them on the next show. The blow up instruments, we'd grab the groom and have all the girls sing RSPECT. We still did bouquet toss back then.
Mm-hmm.
The bouquet and the garter. We still did those things back then. That is how long ago I started. But yeah, just I was not a great MC in the beginning. No, sir.
That was one of those skills that came along later. I remember the first couple of weddings, and we've laughed about this, that we might have done a couple of weddings back then and not even gotten on the microphone. And I'm not
Yeah.
sure how we would have done that, but I think we did. And there was no one was offended by it, and no one was like, oh, you ruined our wedding because you didn't. I can't tell you how we did their first dance. If they were just there and the music started and they did it, it's been way too long ago, but we definitely remember that there were shows.
Mine was very Mick wedding. Like here, we like to invite the father of the bride out. I didn't use any names,
Sure.
and to come dance with the bride. So it was literally like a Mick wedding. But I mean, what do you expect when you're just starting and until you
Mm-hmm.
learn something and things?
One of the first microphones we had was a FM, a Radio Shack FM mic, wireless FM, and we actually, when my partner and I, when we would go and do two, he would go and do one, and so that became my main microphone, and it was so bad, and you sounded so terrible, and you had feedback issues or static or something. So yeah, the use of the microphone was so limited, if at all, with some of them. Other people were playing with inflatable guitars there, Cubbie.
Yeah.
They mentions those also. That's funny.
I would say one of the things that definitely helped me, and you mentioned the radio thing, but there was only a very small handful of weddings that I did in the very beginning. Um, I did the radio thing, and that's where I kind of wanted to go, I thought, with my career. And so I was kind of more focused on that. But then when I first got out of college, I was doing a restaurant that would convert to as much of a club as they could make it
Mm-hmm.
on a Friday and Saturday night. And but it was weird because I would start playing their music for their happy hour. And so it was very much like the radio style. And that's what they wanted, right? Like, here's tonight's specials. Here's, don't forget to take care of the bartender, take care of the, servers. And like it was that kind of thing. And then when we got into the actual like dance portion of the night, like things would get recorded, and we had a contract with a company in Houston that would listen to the tapes and would critique us, and so I learned some of the talkover aspects of what to do from there
Mm-hmm.
because of some of the feedback that I would get, because again, it wasn't doing like a radio thing, it was doing more of that. You have people in front of you, you're not pretending people are listening, but people are actually in front of you responding. So some of that kind of, I think, helped gauge how I handled those beginning pieces, as especially those formality type moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could definitely see that being advantageous, because when we were doing the bar show and we had that where they're like, okay, here's some things we want you to announce, 3 or 4 times during the hour, it made it much easier to, okay, so I'm going to say this, but this time I'm going to say it this way, and to be able to kind of think and be prepared a little bit, still being semi-spontaneous, but I didn't have it scripted down, but I could then go and, this time I'm going to try this. But yeah, the early microphone world, and Dan, you mentioned that initially when we very first started this, we were doing bars, and our kind of thought was, how much fun would it be? Because bars at the time around the area, they would get drunk people, and it was a lot of fun. And I was, we were in our 20s, so we are like, this could be a lot of fun. Maybe someday we'll make enough off a bar, that it can justify doing bars on a regular basis, because our first couple of bars were $50 We did them for $50 a night.
Ooh.
It's just what they were. That and pizza. I suppose if we'd have asked for beer, we might have gotten beer too, but we didn't ask for beer. But it was the idea behind it is that we really weren't thinking about doing weddings. It would be, we did high school dances, and we were doing those in high school in the early college years. But then when we could get old enough to get into bars and really be able to perform in bars, it's like, this could be a lot of fun, and we can do these really cool nights. So getting out and doing a wedding, it's like, well, in the bar, I didn't need to talk. So why do I need to talk much in that? So comparing that to today, if you have with a newer DJ today, we could get away with it back then. Can a younger DJ do some of the things today that we did back then and not be completely chastised for it?
I think it kind of depends. I think it really, really depends because as I'm thinking back to those moments, like as I was doing those first few weddings, yeah, some of it was the industry was a little bit different. People weren't in the know, but in the same respect, if they're hiring a brand new DJ, they're gonna kind of know that, right? You know what I mean? Like the expectation, I don't think is going to be that they're going to get some masterful person that mixes and is an excellent MC and has this great baritone voice or whatever, and has all the bells and whistles because they just started out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like so I don't think it's one of those things where they need to have everything, but I do think that there is maybe a little bit of you need to at least have some of that practice in your belt because I mean, truth be told, when we first got started, reviews were non-existent, other than maybe they sent you a thank you card, right? So if you screwed up their wedding, we didn't have to worry about it getting out per se as easily, obviously, as it would now. So there is that piece where you just want to make sure that you're at least ready for what you're doing, even if it wouldn't be that same way.
Cubbie, you've trained DJs. You've had some newer DJs in the last few years go out on occasion. What are your expectations for their performances compared to your early expectations of your performance?
Very minimal. Just just kind of like the basics,
Mhm.
being able to make the dinner announcements, make the toast announcements, announce the first, the formal dances, and anything that needs to be done, how to dismiss tables. I mean, kind of, and then those skills will get better, I think. But as far as emceeing, kind of just the bare minimums at this point in time, and always less is more. Randy Bartlett says, "Don't get over the mic, don't get over talking over the microphone." So, I wouldn't let them do a game per se, maybe like a Shulywed game or a scavenger hunt until they feel really more confident on the microphone. So I'd probably just be more of a stripped down wedding where they're not doing as many outside things.
Mm-hmm.
I think you hit on the less is more. People, you can ruin things by talking too much. I think if you keep your mouth shut, the biggest complaint you might hear is Aunt Joan, who's upset because I didn't know the cake cut was going on, right? Because you didn't talk about it loud enough. But if you're up there talking between every song, and you're up there talking a lot, that's gonna be found out. That's gonna be a negative.
I think if you're talking too much, people don't pay attention anymore,
Yeah,
which becomes a real factor.
especially today's attention span.
I'm sorry, did you say something?
Yeah.
No.
I knew it. I knew it was coming, so I just kind of was like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. It's too much of a softball.
Yeah.
Softball toss.
You saw that one come right down the middle, man. It's there.
As soon as the smile hit his face, I knew he's leaning.
Yeah. It's got the telltale sign. He has something clever to say, or at least he thinks it's clever. Let's put it that way. So, music playback. When we first started, Dan mentioned it that the idea of fading in and out of songs, was what it was, based on our technology and such. When the boys I've been teaching my boys here in the last couple of years, and they've been doing more and more with that. And at one time, it was like, just don't have dead air. When I was getting DJs, it was like, just don't have dead air. There's going to be some songs that you can push pause to start it in, in beyond, where she says she's got that, and then I like big butts and I get, you hit the pause right there. Whereas there's going to be some, you can't do that with every song, and there's going to be some that are weird beginnings that just don't match up, but just don't have dead air. Now, when I'm teaching the boys, it's the ability to preview and listen and set cue points. I think I've got a completely different expectation of, even though they're just starting out, of how that should be performed. What are your guys' thoughts when it comes to that, comparing today to then when it comes to basic music playback?
I would still think that the don't have dead air has to be first and foremost. And the reason why I say that is because somebody who's new and just starting out, right? If you've been practicing and everything else and listening back to your mixes, you know if you're able to drop on the one, or if you think you're dropping on the one and it's not really, and you end up with train wreck. Like I think what ends up happening is we we hear about couples responding better to a DJ who mixes. The problem that I think gets overshadowed is, yes, if the person is mixing semi competently,
Mm-hmm.
but if you have a train wreck after train wreck after train wreck, that's not going to work. And you're better off to fade. You're better off to just make sure you don't have dead air. But the key is, I think, don't have dead air, or at least watch where the energy drops. Like, get rid of the energy drop, right? Because if you are fading, right, there's the point where if you drop it too low, everybody's like, okay, the song's over. Why is he not starting the next one? It's not dead air yet, but
Mm-hmm.
the song's definitely fading out. Just making sure that you're better with that. Cubby, what would you think? That's my gut, but
Yeah, no, I think mi teaching them how to mix in and out, and maybe second course. I mean, I'm a first or second course mixer out anyway, but my fears, and even in my market, they actually call themselves DJs and they autoplay everything.
Mm.
Literally just set a playlist, and they may move a song here to there, but they just set a playlist, and even during the dance portion of it, they just autoplay it the entire time. Um, and they've got 5 or 6 DJs, and and I'm like, Dan was like, yeah, it's train wreck. I thought to myself, like, just let it auto mix, man. Just put, because it's gonna mix better than you are. Um, but yeah, I think, like I said, is you got to practice. Like with any job that you do, you got to practice in the mirror. You got to practice the week of your announcements and your grand intro, and mixing at least 30 to 45 minutes, just the minimum, right? If you got a full-time job, just continue to practice, so that when it does come game time, you can perform.
And I look at, think you practiced way back then, and I think, you know, CDs and the CD players and, fading back and forth. I didn't practice that, but I would listen to
No.
the songs to know that, this violin part at the beginning of "Come On Eileen." Obviously, I don't want that to be playing. I wanted to start in a dun 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 dun. That's where I wanted to start. So I would preview and kind of figure out the ins and the outs in my world, but practice wasn't a thing. But today, with our tools we have, it's like a completely different. And I don't know if that's just my expectation of where I'm at now compared to then, or if it's just because of having the tools that you can do such a higher level, or as Cubbie was you just alluding to with the, our clients are expecting, the short attention span thing. They're going to expecting us to be in and out quicker.
Oh, I would have never. Go ahead, Dan.
no, you got.
I was going to say, I never in a million years would I thought a mix with a CD, like cutting out at the second course. I'd rather count down, like waiting. And that's how I know all the older songs when I played on CD. You knew when to fade out right near the end. You just knew what your point was. But I would have never thought with a CD to mix out early, ever in a million years.
I didn't mix. So I mixed CDs. I mean, that was the thing when I started in the restaurant slash bar nightclub thing. They had dual decks. In fact, they had a vinyl turntable, but it was broken. So I had to play off of CDs, and that's where I learned to mix was with a dual deck CD player. So there was that aspect to it, which I think kind of helped. But yeah, I would not have been mixing in and out just because from the simple standpoint of sticking a CD in and letting it load took like 20 seconds sometimes.
Yeah.
You are not changing your mind. You're not loading a track going, oh, that doesn't sound good. I got to go someplace else. You're going, well, let's hope they still dance. Like that's what you had to do with some of that. But you're right. I think some of it is your clients have changed. So some of that responsibility of getting in and out of songs faster. But I still think that's like, I don't think that needs to be a new DJ thing.
No.
Can a new DJ pick up and run with it? Like, John's boys, starting out as they were starting out, could they have picked that skill up and maybe moved faster in that area? Sure. But if you're not ready for that and you're needing something to play a little bit longer, just be aware that your clients, depending upon the age of them and what their background is, may be okay with that and may wish for it to go a little bit faster in order to have a better dance floor.
Just reading chat here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, one of the areas you hit there, Dan, was age. I think age of the people coming into it. The kids who are playing with the digital side of it. Many of them have been playing with apps on their phone or on their different devices that preclude that type of performance more than what we grew up with. So I definitely think there's a level of that, and they catch on much quicker to be able to do things today at a higher level than we could even do in the middle of our career. When it comes to that side of it. So yeah, age definitely is a factor in how you adapt to the technology of it. We mentioned, of course, microphone, and then Cubbie talked a little bit about how much he enjoyed, putting on the fireman's hats on everybody's heads and having them parade on the floor when he played Hot in Here. Interaction. When did that really, Cubbie, was that something that was right away when you first started because of the company that did that, or was the interactive stuff come on more as you got more experienced with the microphone?
Some of it was the company. I started with the one of the previous owners of Mobile Beat magazine. So we were going to trade shows and we were learning new things. So it was part of our training. And the interaction scenes that we did when we were back then were a thing called Words of Wisdom, where we put 3x5 cards on every table and asked for words of advice, for the couple. And then we'd read them to them before their first dance. And if you had a fun couple, you would have them name their first baby. Put the grandma, she's not pregnant, no surprises. We're not here to surprise anybody. But then we'd flip the card over and it might be Cleophas or or something. And it was just kind of somewhat humor. But that was our interactions. We didn't do the shoe game. We didn't do a scavenger hunt or anything like that. That was the only two interactions we ever did. And then of course all the corny stuff that with the inflatable music instruments and YMCA hats.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, did you ever do much for interaction games?
In fact, I sold against that. I used
Okay.
that actually as a selling point in my market because there was one gentleman who was top of the game when I was coming on, and did fantastic work, but he was highly interactive. Right. Like he was out leading a conga line in the hats, blowing playing the sax while he's going through through the middle of the hall. Like that's the type of thing he did. And then there was one other guy in the area who started doing it pretty much to the same level. And I said, you know what? I'm not here for that. My focus is on you. And I want everybody else's focus to be on you. I'm not here for my 15 minutes of fame, and I don't need it. And I would use that as my selling point. And on the back, I would even say something like, if this is what you're looking for, I'm not your person, and I can put you in touch with the person who is.
Mm-hmm.
And one, because I didn't feel comfortable doing it, and two, those two guys were known for doing it.
Sure.
So I was able to say, you know what? There's plenty of people out there that do not want that type of thing at their wedding, and so I went against it. So yeah, I lucked out. I never had to buy any of the blow up instruments.
No, I guess you missed out. Sorry.
Yeah.
I did. But it was interesting. There was times where I thought about like, oh, maybe I should, maybe not to the extent that some of them were doing, but maybe of having some of those pieces. And when I've even gone along, and shadowed some people that are more in that vein and more in that style of interaction, it was cool to see. It was cool to see it firsthand and see the energy that went with it and how they were able to do it and not have it be about them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it seemed like when I was younger and starting out, maybe I would have viewed it differently. But when in the moment of seeing them do it the way they did, I was like, oh, this is a different type of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at that point, I still was like, it's not. I'm too introverted in a lot of aspects. Like it takes a lot for me to be out, and I have my area where I can go and I'm comfortable and I can suck it up for a little bit. And then there's an area where I'm not that person, and
Mm-hmm.
that is definitely one of them.
And definitely during the early years from the 80s into the early 90s, mid 90s, that whole idea of doing interactive things on the microphone more than just a little bit was horrifying. But when I graduated from college and started teaching, that changed things tremendously. And then to be able to be up in front of a group of junior hires and keep their attention for through a lesson, you learn a lot of little things about how to work with how to herd cats at that point in time, and that really helped. Really will really helped a lot when it came to being able to be more interactive. And then about the time Cubbie's referring to when he was starting and that interaction was coming on, that's where we made a bank there for a while because we were one of the first ones who were doing a lot of those interactive things, and we had shows where we were doing a lot of different activities and skits or routines, what have you, at weddings. And then we would have the corporate world where we would be doing game show type things or group contests, and those things kind of carried on throughout at some level from the late 90s through probably the 2010, 11, 12.
Yeah.
It was very very common to and there were numerous times I was doing a corporate event for doctors. I've got 70 doctors, and we're doing the survivor. We're doing a team survivor event where they all divided up into teams and they were all competing about doing this whole thing, and it was a really no dancing whatsoever, but it was that interaction was huge. It was a big thing, and then it all went away. So
With
this,
the on
Yeah.
yeah, with the onset of the internet and interwebs.
yeah, it really did, and here's we comparing and contrasting, music playback style, what a beginner DJ would do back in our time when we, in the 90s, compared to what you would expect or do today in a quick fashion has changed tremendously. Interaction or the involvement of the crowd and different things, the microphone skills have changed, but at times I feel like we've actually gone backwards from the standpoint is that I don't do as many wedding formalities that I did in the 90s. A first dance, maybe a parent dance, and we're going to party the rest of the night. That was so not part of 90s weddings. Maybe the first few I did because I didn't know any better. But once I became a little established and such and would talk on the microphone, because by then I had purchased my very nice Radio Shack microphone, the wired one, which actually sounded really good. It was using it was their knockoff version of the Shure 87 element. But yeah, do you think have we made a as far as interaction when it comes to weddings? Have we made that loop? Are you guys seeing the same things?
I would say I'm talking less and doing less things. But here in the Midwest, we're always a couple years behind everybody. So I mean we really are. But I would say that yeah, I'm doing less interactions and like not announcing the cake cutting a lot of times and some of these new transitions that we're new trends we were talking about for the upcoming year. There's not as many old traditions as there was.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm doing a lot of combined father-daughter dances and mother-son, and they're maybe a minute and a half long, and that's it.
So they definitely evolved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say though I'm seeing a distinction in my head, this may be not what some of you are thinking, or even the two of you are thinking. But when I hear interactions, yes, I know my MC aspect of introducing people, how I'm doing their grand entrance, and how I'm, bringing them up for their first dance, and whatever other formalities we may do are technically interactive elements. I don't think of it from that standpoint. I don't know why. Like in my head, that's more of that MC, that's more of that formality side. And while I may have, a shtick or something that I do for some of the ones where I need some humor or want some humor added in, um, that's part of it. But when I think of interaction, I think of the things that are happening during the dancing portion.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's because of my thought goes back to the guys that were leading the line dances that were out there with, whatever it is. And so my brain goes to that when I think of some of those interactive elements. Now I'm not doing that, but I'm on the microphone, potentially more of like a hype type of situation, and not a lot, but more than what I was doing, say, in the beginning when I was doing more of those formalities. And I almost feel like in some aspect that's maybe because I've got more of a 3 to 4 hour dance floor now, where before I maybe had two,
Hmm.
right? So like, because I've got this longer dance floor, I've got to get something out there. I've got to keep that energy going. I've got to make sure they're keeping, you know, aware of what's going on. They're paying attention, and they're connected. So I would say that style has increased. Well, yes, the formalities are gone because people are just not interested in them as much as they used to be.
Cubby, the hype side of it that Dan just brought up, is that something that because I mean, you like that again, with your trivia, you like that little sharp wit that you can just inject as you're going, and even in some of the announcements and things you've talked about. But is that something you do during your show at all?
Hyping is in the middle of Whitney Houston. I want to dance with somebody, get him to sing, or don't stop believing, kind of
Possibly.
like a Big Daddy thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's certain points throughout the evening that I'll get everybody belting a song.
Mm-hmm.
During the dance portion of it. But I'm with Dan as far as once the dance starts, it's basically just mixing in and out and maybe getting them to sing anthems, the sing along songs that everybody likes.
Mm-hmm.
That would
I
be
like to
that'd be
take
the extent.
I like to take the idea that Randy Bartlett gave out a few years ago. I don't remember which one of his videos, but it was one of those things like, if you know what the crowd is going to do, like, they're going to sing because whatever. 10 seconds before they're about to, you tell them to, and now suddenly it looks like you are the puppet master of everything,
Yeah.
right? Like, this DJ got us singing. He was having everybody having a great time. Where if you hadn't said Buckus, it would have still happened. It's just a way to maybe do it. So I would encourage, like, some of you who are routinely seeing things happening at your weddings, find a way to make it your fault. To be able to take advantage of that. Not like everything,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? But within some realm, you know, try and get a way to make it seem like it was your doing, because in the same respect, that helps kind of that overall
I
impression of you.
I do a thing during Don't Stop Believing. And they talk about a small town girl, and I'll be, that's Lori. And then, talk about Lonely Boys from when it says Detroit. I'm like, no, it's John. He's from Gray Eagle, Minnesota. And everybody goes crazy,
Mm-hmm.
because they said where the group, I did it for a Jersey wedding 2 weekends ago. And when I said he was from whatever town in New Jersey, they just went crazy. Like they'd never seen anything like it before. So I always find out where the groom was raised and then kind of throw that in there. Instead of being from Detroit, he's from Gray Eagle or
Mm-hmm.
Williamsburg or something. It's stupid.
Mm-hmm. But the response from the crowd,
Oh yeah, it
it's
just
huge.
gets a response every single time.
Exactly. There's so many things, and Don't Stop Believing is obviously one of those party favorites that you can develop your routine with that, because I also have done things with that, and still do it. I mean, karaoke in a bar a couple of weeks ago, I did my Don't Stop Believing routine, the same one or variation of it I do at high school, so in a variation I do at weddings, and then I did it at the bar. And it's the same response in each situation, is that the crowd just loves it. They just eat that up. But now here, that's a skill that I don't think I could, my sons can do a lot, but that's a skill I don't think that not even close to at that point. I would put that on the other end of, beginning, your middle years, and you're going to be somewhere over here because you have to be experienced and comfortable, and I don't want to say gutsy enough to do it, but somehow that you're confident enough in your abilities to make it work.
And know the song inside and out. Any song that you're gonna prompt them to sing, you've got to know that song inside and out because you can't get into like a Piano Man. There's a couple different points in there. Before he goes in the chorus, it sounds like he's getting ready to go in the chorus. You're like, sing it, and it's not the piano, but and you're like, so you've got to know those songs inside and out.
But I hear that in the same respect, and I think about a lot of our newer, younger DJs are coming from some scenarios, are coming from the clubs, are coming from school dances where they're experiencing that in the first person. This is not, like I never had that experience locally. Like somebody who was hyping up a crowd and doing that kind of thing. I did not have that type of experience with any of the events that I went to.
Good point.
So I would never like learned that along the way. But I think a lot of our younger DJs have been growing up with that, not to mention what they can see, what they can look up and kind of learn from that side too. So I think there is a way for them to be able to pick that up in some of their process. I do agree that it's not a brand new DJ new skill, but I don't think it's as far advanced as we might be led to believe. At least with their current songs, right? Yes, your older ones, there's maybe not the music knowledge yet, but with your more current stuff, I think there's a little bit less of a learning curve as we might expect.
And I suppose you think about it, they will see. I mean, my boys have seen me do that half a dozen times, if not more. And if they've seen people do these things, obviously, when you've seen it and you've been able to witness the timing, it's going to certainly help for you to be able to go do it. And I guess, yeah, that's definitely going to shorten that learning curve with doing that type of stuff. Yeah. So that's not fair. We had to learn the hard way. So
There's a lot of things that aren't
I
fair,
know. I was
John.
going to say, I'm starting to
You're
feel
just
like
now
that,
catching on to that.
I'm feeling that this show is kind of going in wow, it's just not fair, man. I think we should just put on a good album and, just kind of sit around and feel
Wait,
good about ourselves once again.
wait for the chill room.
Just feel good about ourselves again.
I think there's one thing that we didn't necessarily talk about. This could be a show completely on its own. I mean, and maybe this was some of the direction you even were thinking with this, John, where what would be a good progression for some of our newer DJs to kind of focus on as they were developing, right? Like as we were talking about, could they pick this up? Yeah, they could pick up different parts and maybe kind of advance themselves a lot faster in certain things just because of their background. But if you're just starting out, what is the expectation from the crowd? I don't think the expectation from the crowd is that you're going to be a hype person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The expectation from the crowd is not going to be that you're going to be a great mixer. The expectation from the crowd is not that you're going to be a polished MC. So what is going to further your bottom line the fastest? I think also comes down to where's you're going to be your niche, like, or niche crowd, like where's going to be your ideal couple. Is it going to be that club vibe? Well, then you do need to focus on more of the hype aspect. Is it going to be somebody who wants more of the emotion? Then you need to focus on the MC. Is it, are you looking for kind of that well-rounded? Okay, well, now you're gonna have to have a little bit of mixing with a little bit of the MC and a little bit maybe the hype. Like just really kind of figure that out, and that's going to help key you in to maybe the quickest path to the most benefit.
But I think the point of a path, you use that term there, and I like that a lot. That there is a path, and why I'm feeling sad is that our path was a much longer, meandering path, and I think for DJs today, if they're willing to put the time and the work into it, it can be a much shorter path than what we experienced. It certainly will be
Yeah.
different.
Oh,
I,
even just the fact of AI tools, and what they have available to do, to think through some things that ours was either trial and error, or it was, throwing it up in a chat room, whether it's a Facebook chat room or pre Facebook, right? Like, we had kind of that experience to kind of pull from. And now it's, hey, such and such, what should I do here?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for asking. You should play the, whatever. So
I think the musical software too. I mean, golly, Pete, it can do everything for you. It can make, show you the nice compatible songs that you want to mix into, and um, the controllers nowadays. If you use the sync button, that's a hot topic. But I mean, there's they start off so much easier than what we did clear back then. Like like you said, the resources that they have, the internet and chat rooms and videos, YouTube videos, and it's a lot easier to learn.
Yeah, and just you mentioned the Chat GPT, and what you can do with that is crazy. I told it to write its best Cubbie Powell introduction for a wedding party introduction, and it did. In Cubbie's, and it is.
Now you know how I do it.
Yeah, well, and then here's the line. It says the coaching of the Chat GPT, again, it's just to for Cubbie Powell from Ankeny. Introduce each pair with enthusiasm and energy, and adding fun facts and inside jokes, which is kind of your shtick a little bit.
It's definitely my shtick.
It's like, and that's ChatGPT. Yeah, oh, goodness gracious.
It is a little crazy in some aspects. Like, I went through the name change, right? This past week. It finally went live. I had it the day it went live to pull an about me, and I didn't use the old business. I used the new one. Guess what? It found me.
Mm-hmm.
It used me.
That's
So, yeah.
Crazy how that works. So yeah. The last part about it is, especially newer DJs who are just getting into it. They're one of the big things they always are wondering. How do I price my services? And the service between where I'm starting at, and we've always talked to you. We all start somewhere, and our pricing reflects that. And you guys have both made mention to, as you've increased your skill set, that's going to change the value of what you bring to it. Does years of experience matter too terribly much, or is it something because of their path? If they can increase their rates based on the dedication to increasing their learning curve? How do you think those things would fit together with today's DJs?
Go for it, Cubby.
I think as a new DJ hitting the market and you don't have a lot of experience, I mean, I'd go low to moderate pricing to begin with, to grab those reviews, to get that experience, to get some referrals going, to get people, and then gradually, incrementally, as you see fit. Once again, if it's starting to easy book you at one price and it's like a no brainer, then raise your price by $100 or 150, whatever, depending on where you started at. And then once you get those referrals and reviews, and they're going on to the different various websites, whether it's Facebook, Google, I encourage you to use every review site, and then continue just to incrementally increase your pricing. When it becomes a no-brainer for them to think about, they can't get off the phone fast enough ready to book you because you're such that value. It's when you're up at the higher price, like, well, let me get back to you, and they may get back to you within 48 hours after they talk to other companies. But it's when it becomes they can't get off the phone fast enough because they want to book you, raise your price.
See, and I think that fits really well with DJs over the age of 40 who are getting back into it or getting into it the first time. I've talked to DJs who are in their 20s, younger people who are just getting into weddings, and it's like they didn't even bother to. You kind of mentioned a low to moderate pricing structure. It's like they start in the deep end of the pool, pricing wise. And I don't know if there's a level of confidence that they have in their abilities or their confidence in quoting these prices, but they're doing weddings and they're charging way more than I did they're in some cases they're charging almost the same money that I'm charging for a wedding, and they have been doing it for 6 months, a year. We just started last year. 2023 was a great year, and they've made a couple of connections with the venue or something, and now that's where their traffic is coming in from, and they're booking $1,500 to $2,000 weddings, and it's like, what? You've been doing it for 17 minutes now, and
Yeah.
and it just floors me.
And that could be that social media. I mean, it depends what their social media looks like. Good for them if they can get
Oh
it.
yeah,
I
yeah, for
mean,
sure.
and so you mess that up, and then it's really going to kick, bite you in the butt possibly. But good for them if you can get it. But I think that's where the social media presence is. If their TikToks are hot, if their social media is on point, and they're young and they're dropping all the keywords, it might shine somebody better and been in the industry for 20 years.
It's also one of
But
those things, if you come across some of it, I think is confidence, right? Like you kind of mentioned that, and hitting with the social media aspect of it. I think there's also that type of piece where you see the influencers and you see like, oh, I want to be like them, so I need to charge like them. And maybe not the full amount if you find their prices, but get this feeling like you can do more. And maybe you're even to the point that, like, I don't want to be viewed as less than Bob over here,
Mm-hmm.
because I think I can be him. I think I can be better than him because I'm closer to the age of the couple, so I should be able to know what they want more. And so I think there's some of that philosophy there. But I would also add, kind of, for some of them, this might be, when they're first starting out, this might be part-time. So if it fails, oh well. But it's early on enough that they can try those kind of things and see what ends up happening. And if it doesn't work out, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
Where somebody who's more established in what their career is, and then is doing this for, I really want this to succeed. So I really, they go at it in a different mindset, of maybe a longer game, or a longer build up to being established, rather than, well, if it doesn't work, I'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to that, many times that we're selling with desperation, or we feel a level of desperation that we have to. And yeah, that's a great point, because we've grown up, with our parents or grandparents were from the Depression, and there's always been that level of, there's always that in the background, and probably the younger haven't experienced that, and don't know what it's like to have the butter wrappers, cleaned and washed and folded in the drawer there, because Grandma saved all the wrappers from her butter, type of thing. Different times.
anyone on Me Too, Dan? I've never heard that either.
Really?
Did your grandma really save her butter
Yes,
wrappers?
this is actually a thing. Yep. Yeah,
Wow.
this was,
Like, as in like the plastic wrap type of
they would
thing.
have been it would have been a wax paper.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, and it would, because pounds of butter back in the 50s and 60s were
Yeah.
kind of in a wax paper, and they would save those, and there was your wax paper for separating things, or utilizing it. Yeah, it was very, very common that those would be
Okay.
saved.
All right then.
Yeah.
I was in my head, I'm thinking, like, what else would you use it for? But okay.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
there were things I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head of what
Yeah.
they were used for. Um,
Grandma knew.
Obviously they
Yeah.
were, because yeah, in my yeah,
Go grandma.
she had a
Yeah.
drawer with that, and aluminum foil. If you used aluminum foil, you would get, when it's done, is it would get washed off and then flattened again, and then it also had its spot in a drawer. And if you had to, you'd fold it, and then you would have, so some aluminum foil would get used 3, 4, 5 times before it would be deteriorated, or whatever. And when you grow up with that, I suppose that that level of desperation can seep through too often when you're trying to build a business, or you're trying to sell your services or things, and maybe that a younger generation just does not have that experience, so they can come in there with a confidence that was foreign to those who lived through or experienced it through family.
Well,
I
you
don't.
even have some of that piece of them when they're going up for we'll say regular jobs, right? Like non-DJ jobs. That's a better way to put it. But, I have friends of mine who own businesses and they tried to hire them for, working fast food, and they come in and they're expecting $25 an hour, and they go, sorry, like that's not the kind of place this is. And all right, see ya. Like, and that's where I think some of them are expecting this higher pay type of events,
Yeah,
and
very possible.
this could be a carryover to that as well.
Yeah, interesting. Alrighty, gentlemen, we're going to even the bacon grease. Yes, I remember the bacon grease, Mikey. That we'd save the bacon grease because that'd be used for frying the potatoes, and there was something else. There was one more thing that the bacon grease was used for. But
Cooking
the
anything.
fried potatoes was a big part of it.
My parents did that one.
Yeah,
The bacon grease.
yeah.
I
And
still remember the pot. I still remember the pot that it was put in.
yeah, yeah. And now today, with all the things they put in bacon and the sodium and things in there, it'd be like, oh, we don't want to do that. That's bad. That's bad. Let's see. So tomorrow night, I've got, let's see, is Eric Yeagers on with me? It's at 8 o'clock Eastern. And then at 9 o'clock Eastern is the Tuesday night with Ben Stowe show. Ben's going to be coming in, and we're going to be talking about, okay, I don't remember. The video player's already made, so I don't remember what we were talking about tomorrow night. But we'll be hitting a couple of our questions and Ben's joke of the week and all the good things. Talking about life expectancy of DJ gear. There we go. Ben was actually pretty excited about that because he's got some slides. Imagine that. He'd have some slides. But anyway, so that'll be tomorrow night's discussion. When you guys are done with us here, DJNTV.com/chill. I see quite a few from the chill room have been in with us tonight. Thank you guys for being with us. But bounce out there. It's the Monday night. They'll get together and hang out and talk and such. And yes, the chill room has been going until like 5:30 in the morning. I've seen people when I get up at 5:30 in the morning, Central Time. So I'm going in and it's like, they're East Coast time. That meant they made the night because they were there when I went to bed, and they're still and they're chatting away and having a good time. So DJNTV.com/chill. Tonight it'll be kind of a hangout time, and they'll do a little recording. And then tomorrow night is the music show where you can come in there and talk music. And granted, there's music talk tonight too. So you guys can have some fun with that and take it from there. So Dan, why don't you wrap it up?
Well, there you go. Well, thanks very much for joining John, Cubbie, and myself. It was a pleasure having you along, whether it was live or whether it was in the replay. Either way, we appreciate it. Have yourself a great one, and we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.